Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hello, Gordon. Thanks for joining me on my podcast.
Hello, Mimi. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. Well, any excuse to talk to you and catch up is, is a good one. So happy to
Love
see you. You've been Mr. World Traveler lately, though. I can't really throw stones because I get to travel a lot too, but still I'm jealous because you go to all my favorite places. How are your trips? How was your vacations?
Oh, my favorite place is Spain. So I spent most of my time there this summer. I like to reset before I come back to the hauntings of America. So it was
I
a
have
good
no idea what you
reset.
mean. Hauntings of I have
I
no
know.
idea.
Easy
No
life.
idea.
And so spent a lot of time. I figured out the formula to getting your friends to come on vacation with you is to do your vacation plan and pay for it, and then they will just join you because they feel jealous. So
Oh,
that happened here. So tons of friends met me. So it was really like I went away for several different mini reunions. So it was good.
okay. Amazing.
But I'm
Amazing.
back
Yeah.
now. I'm
I
back in the heat,
know.
the earthquakes of California.
You know,
California,
I
welcome
was
me with a nice
I was
shaker.
actually on a conference call with a friend who is 2 miles from the epicenter as it happened just the other day. And I freaked out because I've never seen anything like that live. And like shit was falling everywhere. I was like, what the heck is
Yeah.
happening? Geez, so
Yeah,
it
we did.
was
I
it
was
was
in
crazy.
Hollywood, so I was about, I guess, 6 or 7 miles away, I guess. And so I was in this exact couch, and
Yes.
I realized that I'm now an LA person, even though I try to tell people I'm a New Yorker. I'm an LA person because it was a very long, there's two types. There's the rolling, which is like this, and then there's the shake, which is the up and down like that. The shake is the one that usually causes a lot of damage and throws stuff around. But this one was a rolling one, but it's a
Okay.
very long rolling one. Long, I mean, it was like 10 seconds, but that seems short. But if you try to go like this for more than 10, for like 10 seconds, you see it's quite a long time. So normally I would have jumped out of this couch and run underneath the doorway or crouched down and done all the things they teach you to do. But I literally for 8 seconds was like, oh, I guess we're having an earthquake. And then after about at the 8 second mark, I started to be like, maybe you should get up and do the protocol. But then
Right.
it ended by
Just
the
to make
time
sure, just to make sure.
that
Yeah, it was
I'm
wild because
officially an
I've
LA
never seen
person
it.
now.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah,
glad you're okay. I'm glad nothing got broke.
I'm glad to. It wasn't fun,
No.
but it also was torturous. It was very, oh, you rolled a little bit. So, it's not nothing compared to the real earthquakes that you get, where people die or whatever. So I'm just very happy
Of
that
course. But it's kind of a bit
I'm
of
here
a
to have a good one.
reminder. It's a little bit of a
Yeah,
reminder of how
that was what it was
insignificant
for
we
me,
are,
actually. 'Cause
and the
I've
earth
missed
can be
all of them
angry
for a
at us.
long. Mhm. I missed a lot of them for a long time, and so it was. I realized I've been very complacent. Like, oh, you forget that you live on a fault, but okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little
Yeah,
more
there's that.
cognizant.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want our listeners to know so they can, and I'm going to, of course, link that, but you and I have a nice friendship because of our parents, right? And so basically, your mommy and my mommy are like chat friends and
Exactly.
Jamaicans. And I also had your dad on my podcast very early
I
on
know.
as an author talking about his work. And it actually was just, one of my fondest memories of him, of course, is always on our cruises, but of course, having him sit down so intentionally and just spending that time with me was so special. And I thought, I think Gordon and I need to have a conversation. And I just kind of love that we're kind of, coming full circle on this and being
I
able to have
know.
you on to talk as also an artist, an actor, a poet, all these things, but just kind of, hearing about your creativity. But that was such an honor and just wholly beloved for Owen. So
I
yeah.
know. Well, I know he enjoyed it, and it was a great interview. So I know
Thank
that it
you.
was, it's very full circle, very kismet.
Yes, of course, very kismet. And of course, I have a love for Jamaica, even though I wasn't born there. It's just you can't help but be just embraced by the culture if you were raised with the culture. And I think people out there who are in touch with their Caribbeanness know, but at the same time, I just have like a lot of sadness from the tragedies that come out of Jamaica, the poverty, a lot of things. I've had like family members who were murdered and just crazy things you don't hear about kind of everywhere. It's like, I was curious what your feelings are of Jamaica. Like what comes to mind when, you kind of talk about it and when, you think about that side of your heritage.
So, I think like most people from Jamaica, I was born in Jamaica and raised in Jamaica till I was 7, and then moved around the world because of my dad's job, and then but went to Jamaica every year. So I've never really felt un-Jamaican in any way. And even though I've lived in America now for so many years, I still feel Jamaican. I'm pretty much, and I tell people all the time I'm Jamaican. So I don't think you can take it out of us. I think we get a bad rap because it's about, I tell people all the time that bad things have great PR teams and goodness and kindness don't have very good PR teams. Like you always hear about, so everybody's always ready to report on Jamaica and all the crime and the blah blah, but no one reports the fact that, you know, thousands and thousands of people go to Jamaica both to return home on vacation or tourists or for tourism, and nothing happens to them. So to me, it's not to deny that there's some sort of crime aspect or, anything due to the economy shifting back and forth in Jamaica. But there's so much greatness that happens in Jamaica, and you really just cannot deny, people clown us for it, but you cannot deny that many times when you go to other countries, there's hardly bad people that come out of Jamaica. There's more greatness that comes out of Jamaica that, you could just Google famous people of Jamaican heritage, and hopefully in November we'll add another one to the
Yeah.
list. But um but it always, and I think it's, what I remember about Jamaica all the time is that it's a strong group of people with a sense of pride and ownership of their country, of their culture, of their interconnectedness and togetherness. We are out of many one people,
That's
so we are
right.
not
Out to many
afraid
one
to.
people.
The reason I
Hmm.
feel like we're so successful in other countries is we're not afraid to step into a room and command it, because we don't feel less than, because regardless of what country we're in or what they think about people of any other color or descent, we've lived in a country where everybody is around. We have Asian Jamaicans, we have Black Jamaicans, we have Indian Jamaicans, we have white Jamaicans, we have everybody. And so, I feel like that carries over. And so I don't think it's surprising to me that we are so successful outside of that. I just think we have bad PR about it. Like nobody,
Yeah.
like everybody wants to
I
tell
don't
you somebody
I
gets
don't
robbed,
disagree.
but
Yeah, of course. I don't disagree. And it's like it's this interesting dynamic because of course anywhere you go and you're talking about, oh, you travel around the world and stuff, but anytime you meet a fellow Jamaican or even a fellow Caribbean, it's just immediately like you book up on them and you're best friends
Mhm.
already. It's like you have so much to talk about and you only have to
Exactly.
take 5 seconds before you start talking food and and music and all of the beauty
And
that
who
does
we
come
know, and
out
if
of
we're
it.
related.
Exactly. Well, I mean, literally, this is so funny because this just happened to me the other day because I was getting in touch with a bookstore owner who was in Orlando and they were like, "Oh, he's Jamaican." I go, "Oh, well, let me call him then. I must know him or he must know my family." And he's a little bit of an older gentleman and of course, we know the same people. Of course, we're connected in
Sure.
some way. I mean, it is what it is. And so I feel like that's a very special and unique thing for the island of Jamaica, and in particular, like people from the Caribbean. There's just kind of a
Yes.
unity, and I think the "out of many one people" is such an appropriate motto for this place where, like you said, you hear Jamaican and most Americans, I'll say, around or either international, like they still.
Mm.
I think maybe only think of Black Jamaicans, right? And it's not an immediate thing, but Jamaicans know, right?
Right.
Jamaicans know that it is a very diverse place. And so you were about 7, so kind of growing up in that atmosphere and then moving to where did you go next?
From Jamaica we went to Canada first, then
Okay.
Kenya. and then the United States.
Right. So, what were each of those dynamics like? Because at different ages in your life is where I feel your interactions shape you, but also can be vastly, I mean, those are all very different countries.
Well, when we left from Jamaica to Canada, it was really just a difference in climate and temperature and location because we were still surrounded by
By
lots of
Jamaicans.
family. And by the way, I've traveled to I think about 35 countries now,
Mm.
and I've never been to a country in the world that I've not run up into a Jamaican. The closest I came was in Malta, and I was in Malta, and I was on the third day of the trip, and I was leaving the next day, and I was on a tour, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen a single Jamaican. This is amazing. I can finally tell people I've been somewhere where there's no Jamaicans." And this lady sat down in front of me and she had her daughter. She was probably like in her 60s or so. And she had her daughter there. And the daughter was going to the bar at the, we were on a boat cruise thing. So she's going at the bar to get refreshments. And she just sat down and I looked at her, I was just in the corner and I just heard her say, "Nobody come back with no foolishness and make sure you bring me water." And I just looked at her and smiled, and she looked at me, not knowing that. I looked at her, I said, "Where you come from?"
Yeah.
And she told me she was Jamaican. So even in Malta, in the middle of the ocean, there you go. It's
That's
like,
amazing.
so,
I love it. I love that so much because it's so true. There's an immediate, kinship, right? I'm really fascinated to actually hear, not that I don't care about Canada, but I have cousins in Canada and being in North
yeah.
America, it's not this, kind of where one thinks of it as like the culture is so different. But I would love to hear about Kenya just because selfishly I'm going to Africa next week. And so I won't be going to Kenya,
Ooh,
but yes, I should be hitting up a few different countries and stuff. So what was that like? What was the um
it's
that whole
still
experience?
in my life and memories of life is my favorite place I lived as a kid. It
Really?
was very beautiful, enlightening. I think it shaped the way I look at the world because, of course, most people have it. First of all, most people think Africa is a country and don't realize it's a continent and that there's, a whole heap of countries in there
Whole heap of
that are
countries in there.
different.
I don't even know how many, but a
And
whole
they
heap.
don't exactly. And then they don't even realize that within each country. So I think in Kenya at the time, I don't know what factual it is, but I know there was at least five because I knew five different tribe members,
Yes,
you
yes.
know. So for me, it shapes your view of the world differently because you realize that Africa is not what you're taught it is. It's
Hmm.
much greater. It's an amazing experience because the people in Africa are so beautiful in their own cultures, and that's going all the way down to the different tribal cultures versus the country's culture. And so for me, it was a very interesting experience because there's lots of stuff that goes on there. Like you get there and they're just their employment infrastructure is that like you get there as an expatriate. So one of the things I vividly remember is arriving there as Black identifying people and being told that we had to hire a maid, a gardener, and a gate man, they called him, to watch the house. And the maid and gardener, it was like, okay, well, that's helpful or whatever. Obviously, the gate guy was just there to watch the house, even though he had full security, and open the gate back and forth for you. And I remember my parents having a very big problem about being Black people, having a Black man waiting on them to just open the gate and run. And it had to be explained to them, well, if you don't do that, you're taking a Kenyan out of a job. And so, you know, I guess what I recall is my parents doing it and just overpaying these people for the job and making sure they had more vacation time, which is another thing that you learn in traveling is that, we take a lot of things for granted in America. But I mean, I vividly remember that these wonderful people that worked for us had families just like we were, who they never saw except for 1 month during the year in that class of people. So in that group of people, the people who were the helpers of the house and the gardeners of the houses and all of that, I believe we gave them anytime we went on home leave, which was for a month and a half or whatever. But the usual amount is they would see their families once a month during the year. So if your family wasn't nearby, you would have to go to, leave where you work and go wherever your tribe was located. And then so, and yet those people were very happy and their families were still ensconced in love and everything. And so to me, it was, very educational on counting your blessings and realizing what you do have or whatever. And then, of course, there's the obvious, well, isn't it so primitive in Africa? And I think I got into Dartmouth College for my essay because I wrote a whole essay about the fact that you would think it was, but one of the opportunities I had as an expatriate child living under in an expatriate school system was we got to do a field trip out to the Maasai culture. And the Maasai are the tall, wonderful, amazing, well publicized jumpers of the warrior tribe of Kenya. And
Yeah.
we spent a weekend with them. And I mean, it's one of the memories that will last for the rest of my life because I was like, these people live in huts made of dung. Their entire world revolves around their cattle, and everything comes from their cattle and their movements and all of that. Their family system is based on taking care of the cattle because that's what sustains the life of the tribe. And even though they don't currently have any wars, they are always prepared and I was
Right.
practicing, with gourds and stuff and different exercises that they do for that. So it was amazing to see these people that we would have looked at and been like, in the West, we'd be like, oh, well, that's so primitive. When I was like, they
Right.
seem real happy to me. They seem very happy to me, and they're very about family. And, so it just taught me to be very open and it's been very helpful. And I think it is what instilled in me the love of travel. I don't travel just for location. I really love to travel to just immerse myself in the local life. I like to talk to people about what their life is like. There's nothing more fun to me than sitting in a city and sitting at a cafe or sitting at a restaurant, hopefully with a new local friend I've made or a friend I've made somewhere else who's invited me there. And then just having the whole culture explained to me or just seeing how everything goes together because it's fascinating, and you just realize everybody wants the same stuff. Like everybody wants love of family, but
Hmm.
everybody wants love is basically what I've come
It's
down to.
true. It's so true. And I love this because I feel like there are so many stereotypes about primitive countries and this and this and that.
But
And
they do it even
I,
in Jamaica. Like so many people tell me about,
yes.
oh, well, they live in a hut, and I have to
Yeah.
remind people that our Beverly Hills beats Beverly Hills in California. They
That's
don't,
not true.
I'm like, and I was like, and I lived there many, many years ago. I can't imagine what it looks like now.
Right,
I was
right.
like, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a whole another hill that's taken over now. I've so I don't know, but I was like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, we're not
Yeah,
just Bob Marley.
and yeah, it's not just, and people usually who, have these, preconceived notions don't travel, right? They don't see the world, they don't go
No,
explore, they don't talk and to other people from other cultures and get out there. But I think it's one of those things too as Americans where we take for granted that what does happiness mean, right? And for us, it's very much, I feel like, rooted in capitalism and success and where you're making your next paycheck and all and just the motivation, whereas I've been to so many countries where one would consider the poverty level very low, right? Like they basically are just hoping for their next meal, but these people look happy because of their sense of community, because of their love for one another. And yes, there are hardships, there's definitively, things that are lacking in terms of their stability or getting, good healthcare, access to things that, we in industrialized countries have and take for granted. But I definitely have learned through travel that happiness does, is a really interesting way to define happiness because everybody, like you said, just wants love and to just have a good family or have to have, acceptance and good health. But like I find it really interesting. Some of the happiest people I've met aren't what one in the US would consider like wealthy or, well-to-do or, it's
exactly.
kind of
I've met a lot of wealthy people. I've hardly met anyone that is happier
yeah.
than people I've met we would consider not doing well
Yes.
or
Yeah, and I think
um,
it's like maybe this is
there's
one
the
of those
obvious
things that
problems you
clouds
talked about,
us.
but I think yeah, it's just
Yes.
and when I was living in France for my foreign exchange program when I was in college, my French family said something to me. My French mother said something to me, and I never forgot it. And she said, "I think the difference between America and Europe is that in America you live to work, and in Europe we work to live."
Mhm.
And I thought that was so fitting, and I never forgot it. And I think that's why I'm conveniently lazy at times, because if my work gets in the way of my lifestyle, then I have a problem. But I have to work to maintain my lifestyle. So I maintain a very, very strict balance on how much I'm going to work, just enough to maintain the lifestyle I want, which is to do the things that makes me smile and happy in life, because you can't take it with you on your deathbed. I don't hear of any reports of anyone going, I should have had that promotion, or I should have made another
No.
$1,000, which is
Yes.
why it boggles my mind that there's so many people that are so money focused instead of family focused, because your money does not come out of the bank to take care of you when you have a stroke, and your money does not come out of the bank to take care of you when you have cancer. It can assist, but when you need that emotional support and the strength you need to actually go through those kind of struggles, you're not going to get it from your banker. So
Definitely not. Definitely not. No,
yeah,
yeah,
you know,
I love that we're kind of talking about this, because I feel like that is such a common thing here. Like, you don't feel that in most other countries, where it's just like go, go, work, work, next, next dollar, next thing. And it's like you look around and they have 4-hour meals. And like in Spain, meals don't start until 8 p.m. and they go till
I
midnight.
know. Live the exact life I need.
Living.
They live the
Yes.
exact life I
And
need.
so I love that you just said that kind of resonated with you, and that you kind of live by that. I'm like, yes, you are, because Gordon's like, I'm gone for several months and in my Spain tour. And but speaking of which, you also have this really amazing ability to walk that fine line, as a performer, as an artist, as an actor. And it's I find that fascinating, because it seems like to me, the very little bit of experience I have in that industry, and that was a while ago. I'm sure it's changed a lot now, but it's difficult to kind of just tap in and out of, right? Like, it almost feels like you're in it or you're not. I mean, I guess that's just my experience, right? Was I didn't want to move to LA. I just didn't want to move to LA. And at that time, if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't be able to be successful in the entertainment industry. And so I did, and then I hated it and moved home. But I feel like now that's changed post COVID, especially because people are doing online auditions and all this. But talk to me about like your ability to go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be a working actor for these months, everybody. And you can't get in interfere with my vacation, because that's my work-life balance. And because you do it so well as a successful career in being a working actor and writer. So what's your secret?
There really is no secret. I'm just quite lucky and luck is just a combination of preparedness and opportunity. And so, or it's not really. I always tell people when they ask you, you seem like you live the best life, or whatever. And I always tell people, well, I don't have anybody to take care of. I have no children, no spouse. So all of my money is mine. I don't have to check in with anybody when I make a decision. So that's one. So if you have kids, you can't live my life, because your life is over the least. And so you can't do it. If you have a spouse, you got to check in with them to make sure your needs and their needs match. I don't have to do that. So those are the two things that I'm up the gate with. So it's not really magic. It's just what has happened. Secondly, it's not, I think I've just managed to, and I will say I'm probably pretty talented at this part of it, which is because I very early on realized that if I am an unhappy person, I will not function well in the world. I'll just become an angry, ragey person. And so, because I learned that very early, I just don't put myself in a position purposefully where I'm going to feel too stressed out by life. But I also still work very hard. So when I am working, I work very, very hard at what I'm doing. I don't just phone it in or whatever. I still work very hard. But I think the gift I do have is being able to look at the circumstance I'm in and finding out how I can use that to my best advantage with minimal labor, with minimum energy expelled. So I think I'm very
You
good
maximize
at that.
everything, right?
Right. When I was in the
No.
phone, I tell people all the time, I was like, please remember that, I'm 54 years old and I didn't start acting on TV until I was 40 something. So, and I wanted to be an actor since I was 30 something. So that's 20 years of thing. And I think what happens in Hollywood is, if you have a good PR team, they love to spin the story that you're Cinderella and you were just discovered. When if you really take a deep dive, it's just lots and lots of work that you've just been doing that's added up. It's not like it's like any other industry. I tell people it just seems like magic, but it's not. It's who you know, it's who you work with, who likes and wants to work with you. And of course, you have to be good. You need to be talented. Now, some people don't need to be that talented, but they have a good group around them that makes them look talented.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's just like any corporation, and people, I mean, you have occasional outsiders, for example, that will come into a corporation, regular business corporation, any
Yeah.
corporation. Generally, if there's a high level thing that's coming in, a high level position that's coming in, you as the CEO are going to be like, well, oh, I remember this person that I know, or I'm going to ask my other peers, who do you know that might be good to shorten the search because you can't search the world. So that's the same thing with acting. And so for me, what I think to answer your question specifically, for me, what has happened is I just found that the circumstance I was in, because when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was petrified. I saved up a whole bunch of money from my corporate job in New York, where I was only doing acting, doing my one-man show as a side gig, making money on that, but very satisfied. And I think the other key that I tell people when they ask me about acting is that I don't do acting to be famous. I do acting because I discovered when I was very shy when I was a child, and acting was my way of getting out of that. And I'm a big debater, as you know. And so I will, when I think things are incorrect or wrong, I will argue you down. And I'm educated about the topic. I don't do guesswork on stuff. I'm educated about it. And if I'm not educated, I will pause and say, I'm not educated on this topic. I will go and do some research and then we will chat. But I will also tell you, you are not educated on this topic. So you need to go back and do your research and then come and we can chat. We can't chat about it now because I'm in a PhD program and you're in kindergarten on this topic and we can't talk about it right now.
I
So,
love that.
that I get from my father. So that is
Yeah.
his, and I'm very able to do it very diplomatically without having to be insulting or whatever, but it's just facts. And you just, do that. But I think with regards to acting, I don't want to do it for the fame, but I did realize that acting is the quickest way to change people's minds about bad things. All you have to do is show them a character that is all you got to do to change a Klansman's perspective is show them a character they think they would hate and make them love that character on screen. You don't have to debate them, nothing. They will go back home and it will resonate with them because at the end of the day, which you have learned through travel as well, it's just love. Nobody wants anything you don't want. And that is the mantra that I live my life with is if I want it and I think I deserve it, then I cannot in good faith stand by while another human being wants that same thing and say they're not allowed to have it, even if I don't agree with them. What I
Mhm.
think the problem is that we used to think that there's enough for everyone, that there's no way to compromise on it. And that's where I have
Mhm.
a problem with our race as humans is that
Agree. Yeah, it's like
it
that
feels
pie
like we have
problem where people think
aliens
if
come
you
in.
take, yeah, when you take one slice, that means there's not enough for everybody else. I'm like, that's not how this works.
Right. And so, one of those beautiful and one of my favorite movies of all time that just came out is Origin by Ava DuVernay.
Ooh.
And it basically puts into beautiful film format all of my beliefs on that because in order to take down another human being, you have to dehumanize them because if you want to stab a human, you're stabbing and taking another life, and that's a different perspective than if you think animals are less than you and you dehumanize a human being into an animal for yourself, and that's much easier to kill off that person, make excuses for that. And so many of the crises I see because I've grown up in several different countries that have had crises or wars, it's the common denominator for me, which is, that you dehumanize the group of people when you could have just tried to equalize everyone and worked it out because they don't want anything different than you. What's simply happening is that you're getting what you want at the expense of those people. And I don't appreciate that when I see that. So I don't do that. So for me, the acting has allowed me to take on characters like that and do things like that. And if I hopefully keep doing it, I will encounter an opportunity to work with somebody like Ava DuVernay, or I've already been able to work with Shonda, and so it's like so those things might happen, and then perhaps I'll get a role that really I can sit around and be like, this is what I have been striving to do. But until
Yes.
then, it's still show business, so you still have to do all of the other roles in it as well. So I have learned to just balance that out in that acting isn't constant work. So instead of me being a nomad that sits there and waits for stuff to happen to me, while I'm waiting, I do stuff I like. And I've also been lucky enough to fall into enough work where I can sustain that. But I
Yeah.
also don't live with my means, so I
Yeah,
don't,
I think that people have this preconceived notion too. Like you say you're an actor, and then everybody thinks that means you're like,
a
Tom
waiter.
Cruise level of acting, that you've been doing all these hit shows forever and you've been in a million movies. And I'm like, there are a lot of levels of acting. There are a lot of different roles. There's a lot of different players. It's and then I mean, I'd love to even talk to you a little bit about stage, because stage acting scares me. I actually feel okay, this sounds crazy. I feel more comfortable on film, but that doesn't mean I'm very good on film. But it scares me, which is weird because I'm a kung fu performer for live. So I feel very happy being on stage live. But when it comes to stage acting, I feel like, oh man, maybe it's just my lack of confidence that the audience is just going to take out those tomatoes and throw them at me. But you clearly see and use acting as an outlet, as a way of expression, as a way to tell a narrative, but also like to kind of share that piece of yourself. And you've done some pretty bold stage, even one man shows where you're just up there and just bearing your all and outbursts. And I just tell me what type of energy does it take? Because it's very different than film, right? But what was the impetus to that? Like, what made you decide, like, here's something that I'm going to do to put myself out there? But I always see that as very brave thing.
I mean, people say a lot of stuff. I don't consider myself that brave, but people always say it that way. But I think it's just because until you know you can do it, you think it's brave when you see somebody else do it. I
Mm.
never really, I think I just slipped into it by accident, quite frankly, because as I said, I was a very, very shy child. My brother was very outgoing, continues to be very outgoing. And I was very, very shy. I was the bookworm. I was the nerd. I wasn't socially awkward. Once you talked to me, and so then I was fun to be around, but I definitely wouldn't be the one that walked into the I'd send my brother forward and he would make all the friends with all the kids, and then I would just wait for him to come in and include me in the, which is ironic considering he was the little brother. So I guess for 4 years, I probably before he came along, I was some sort of loser. I don't know.
No,
He
you're
might
only
sound,
four.
I don't, but when I graduated from high school, I was still a bookworm and still a nerd and still whatever, but graduated at the top of my class in high school and was like, headed to college. And I look back and I'm still just as social as my parents are. And I still enjoy friendships and all of those things. And I realized that I had these four best friends, but it had taken me the 4 years of high school to make these four best friends. And now I was going to New Hampshire up to Dartmouth and I was going to know no one. And I just decided, I don't know what, I think my need to be happy once again, because I had experience now with what friendships do and how much happiness you get from it. I wasn't willing to settle for the old personality because it wasn't serving me. And so I just remember waking up after getting to Dartmouth and realizing that I needed to make friends and that I at that time felt socially awkward and I didn't know how to make friends. And the best way to make friends is to just introduce yourself to people. And what was the best way to do that? And I don't know if you know, but every Ivy League school has a central green. So it's a huge lawn in the center of the colleges. And so for some reason, it wasn't any bravery or anything. I was just like, you need to stop being shy. Like, this is my conversation with myself that I remember having. You need to stop being shy. Go out into the center of the green and introduce yourself to every person that walks by you. And remember, everybody has to crisscross through this thing because they're going to classes. So it's like standing in the middle of Times Square on a college. And so introduce yourself to every person that walks by you. And if you don't die, it means that you can do this individually. You could do this on an individual basis. And I did that. And there is some perspective book somewhere at Dartmouth College. I think it's for the perspective class of 1990. I graduated in 91, so I guess it'd be the class of 1990, I think. Whatever their perspective, there's a book with a very bad picture of me going like this because people still remember this little and I was really tiny. I looked like a child prodigy because I didn't sprout up to college. So this little tiny black guy, like standing up, hi, I'm Gordon, I'm a freshman. Hi, I'm Gordon, I'm a freshman. Hi, I'm Gordon, I'm a freshman. And I would meet people for the next 4 years
Oh my
individually
God.
and be like, hey, I'm Gordon. He's like, yeah, I know. We met you on the green. I shook your hand. You were like that guy that just stood on the green for. I was like, yeah. I was like, so
I
now because
love
I
this.
walk into a room and I don't feel scared because not because I'm not still the shy guy. Like I still have to turn it on.
Mm,
I know it's not going to kill me because it didn't kill me. So I know that I will be successful. The worst that will happen is somebody will laugh at me. And I've been doing this now for 54 years and no one has laughed at me. So I'm pretty confident in it now. I'm pretty confident I'll get away with it. And if somebody laughs at me, it's not going to undo 54 years of doing it correctly. So
right,
it's
right. So just
no,
basically practice.
yes. But on stage, I would say that the fact that you feel like that on stage, for me, going on stage was I then got into acting in college the last 2 years after being asked by my dear friend Shonda Rhimes to join Buddha, which is the Black Underground Theater Association, and she needed men for her play. And I said, no. I said, hell no. It's like, I'm too shy for that. That's crazy. And she did what any of my friends would know to do as the last black male. She's like, if you're my friend, then you'll do it for me. And I was like,
Oh, a little bit of guilt.
and so it turned out to be the greatest gift that she could have ever given me because that's how I discovered acting. Even though, when I look back, I had done acting in high school because
Mhm.
with my four friends, we were all these creatives that had made movies and a horror movie and all this stuff.
Yes,
But I
yes,
never
yes.
really saw it as that. But that's how I got on stage. But I will say that for me, two things happen. Why I say that you're probably a very good actor is that I've never met a good actor that does not get nervous on stage.
Mm.
And for me, my litmus of even with my one man show, which I wrote and I perform and I would be the only one that knows
If
that
it
I
was
did
not
something wrong
correct,
on.
yes.
Even with that show that I've done repeatedly in the past, the right before I go on stage, I know it's going to be a good show if I forget the line. If I forget the
Mm,
first line, it's a moment of panic that's probably point something something 005 seconds long.
yeah.
And I just know I've forgotten completely the line. It's literally when I'm stepping on the stage and I don't know. There's a moment where I have no idea what the line is. And then it comes to me. And it comes to me, I believe, in character. And then it just happens. And then what happens that's fascinating to me is, which I don't know if you've experienced that as an actor or not, but with stage, because not with film, but with stage, you get to look at an audience and you see that someone is looking at you and they fully believe what you are telling them,
Mhm,
even though
mhm.
you are in there going, no, it's really just Gordon. But they fully believe that you are Ruben from, Zoom in the Sign, or you're Miss Raj from the
Yes,
Color
yes.
Museum. And so they're fully believing that. And the reason I fell in love with acting and realized how much you could move people was two pronged. In that at Dartmouth, I was doing these stage plays and for Buddha. And the first one I did, my college roommate that would see me every day was in the front row watching, and I had to do a monologue out to the audience, and he was right in front of me. And I panicked, but I was doing the monologue, and then I started to unpanic because I realized he just did not see this person talking to him as the person who he lives with and
Yeah.
who he eats meals with, and who's in the room across from him. And it's just like I was
Right, right,
like,
right.
that's crazy, you know. And then I was walking around, and this student that was at the mailboxes just stopped me in the middle of his conversation and was just like, "Hey, I just want to say I saw your performance and I really loved that monologue." And I was like, "I don't even know you. Wow, this is what you can do." And so that kind of outdoes it for me. But I will say that even this, after this amount of time, there has never been a moment I walk on a stage, even just doing spoken word poetry. And again, that's stuff I write.
Mhm.
So I can make a mistake and get away with it. I've never gone out and not been petrified. And I think that
Mhm.
that petrification is what I call it the fire, where you're walking out through the fire and the character is coming in to meet you. And that
Ooh,
is where you become the character. And that's why you fearlessly make the choices you make to do it. On
I love
film,
that.
on film, I just get nervous that I'm just gonna mess it up for everybody because on film it's
Because there's
just
other
so
people, and then you gotta do another take, and you don't want to be that person.
on
Yeah.
film I've had to work backwards. So stage acting is my favorite because you get to do all that. Film acting is really taking stage acting and pulling it all inside
In.
and every
Yeah.
like stage acting is I have to reach you at the back of the stage, and
Yes.
film acting is I have to reach you at the into the eyes right here that I would normally be doing this on the stage for. And so that's been
Yeah.
a cool transition that I've had to learn since I moved to Hollywood and started doing stuff on film and stuff. But it's
Yeah.
fun. It's different techniques and stuff. But it's
Yeah.
also
And
I truly believe that stage actors become great film actors, but it's very rare for a film actor to go backwards and become a good stage actor.
I tend to agree with that. I don't know what that's based on for me, whether it's just from shows I've seen, but I tend to agree. I tend to agree because I feel like there's that preparedness that you have to do where you only get this one shot. Like that's it.
One
And
shot.
so you have to kind of one shot, right? Like, and then you're getting an immediate response. And so the stakes feel a bit higher in a sense, in that singular performance. Now, when we say stakes higher, of course, it's like the number of people that could see this is different, but the stakes are higher in the moment as a performer. And I think that that's something that people don't recognize, and dare I say even respect enough from stage actors or
Yeah.
of stage actors. I feel like there's
Yeah.
a bit of a disconnect there. I have a couple more
Plus, there's
questions.
lots. Oh yeah. Plus, there's lots of help on TV and film.
Yeah, yeah,
Like on stage, you have the lights that are shining on you and
yes.
whatever special effect they can do on a stage. On TV, you have the camera angle, the lighting,
Mm-hmm.
the Foley, the background
Yeah,
sounds,
and
all
they
of
can
that.
edit it out and like
Help,
it cut to
all of
the
that,
other
right? So I'm
angle.
not
Yeah.
taking away from the film actors, but yeah,
No, yes.
I think that
Yes.
any actor, any good actor will tell you it's harder to pull off on stage, I think, to really
Yeah.
make to and you have to carry that believability for the time period you're on the stage for. So
Exactly, exactly. It's such to really being in the character. So as a performer, I'm always curious as to the, right before you go on, or what is your process? Do you have like a breathing routine? Do you have a special meal you eat that day? Is there a hype song you use? Like I love hearing about that like right before process that gets you in the moment, or is it different per character
I find for stage, I definitely do these breathing exercises that I learned in my
for like
master's
vocal?
program. Yeah, so I do breathe, and that I think that just serves to relax me and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because right before I go on, I'm just constantly panicked, as I said. So I'm just constantly going through waves of panic. Just, oh, God, and so that just helps you just breathe it out, and just I'll do random stuff like, vocal exercises or breathing
Mm-hmm,
exercises,
mm-hmm.
or I'll just run the lines really fast, or, whatever. But on TV and film, I tend to just run into it. I don't really, I prepare in the trailer, and then I just let it go. And then it's not as much panic because it can be redone. I had to learn that though, because I'm a perfectionist. So I always wanted to be a first, one
Yeah,
take
one
wonder.
take only. I'm a one take wonder.
And then you realize that it's not up to you, because even if you do the one take wonder business, the lighting could be
All the
wrong and they
other
have to
things
do it
around
again.
you.
Like it's
Yeah.
very rare. Like
You
it's
don't have
so rare.
control over this, Gordon.
There's so much you don't have control over. And so just do just have your lines together, do your best. And if you don't do it, you could do it again. So to me, TV and film is not as much pressure,
Hmm.
but you still want to do the best thing for
Of
your audience.
course, of course, of course.
That's the story.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's what the
So
that's what
one of One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about in the little time that we have left is you know this about me. So I'm a like a social justice activist warrior type of human who recently I've focused on education and I got a bill passed in Florida miraculously. And so coming up in the fall, I have this Blasian book fair, right? Which kind of came about because we were working on like Black Asian solidarity. And then so we're working with a team out of New York and we've got like Black, Asian, and Blasian authors specifically to help distribute books here in Orlando to the community for free. And one of the things I noticed was like, we don't always know each other's stories. And you and I were talking earlier, like people don't know there are Chinese Asian Jamaicans. People don't know there are white Jamaicans. People feel like think it's you're either A or B. And actually you're like kind of all of the above, right? So it's kind of ironic I'm
I
talking to you, but I would really be interested to hear because you talk about using acting as your vehicle for building empathy, for telling a story and allowing people to see and fall in love with someone that, hey, look at me and what I look like, and maybe that can, help cross, people
Mhm.
who see barriers in race or people who have stereotypes and everything. And somebody who also you mentioned you were a book, nerd and you enjoyed reading and everything. Like how what stories do you think need to be told, right? Or what is it that we can do as we start to build solidarity between different backgrounds, but also especially in this political climate, right? And so you and I, we're on the same team, so we're all hoping for the election to go in the way of which this country does not become under a dictator, and we're not doing a coronation in November. We really, really are hoping to see that for the first time, a woman of color is going to be in our presidency, and for us to see a different type of representation. But not everybody sees that as exciting and inspiring. A lot of people feel threatened. So, I mean, I guess if you were you're creating this character that you said you're dying to kind of put out there, like what is it do you think we can tell one another, or when you do have these conversations? And unfortunately, people don't care about facts, I've noticed, and you're not gonna I know you're not gonna have the conversation because no one's gonna be at your PhD level of what you want to discuss, but I feel like we do have to have a narrative to share so that we can make a difference in every person we do come in contact with between now and November, because it does matter. I think the stakes are super high. And I'm just super curious because you're so well traveled and because you're a writer and you have such a grasp on things. Like, what do you think we can be telling one another during this kind of crazy freaking time?
The thing I do, and I say I have a PhD level and I don't talk to the kindergartners, that comes at the end of me trying to have the conversation with you
Right.
and you're
When
not.
that you've been fed up.
So it's not that I feel like I'm better than it because the thing I try to remember is I'm not better than anyone because no one's better than me. So I try to remember that even when somebody is coming at me with things that I find ridiculously insane and stupid. One of the things I find that I have this conversation, I call myself a micro politician because
Okay.
I don't do like a lot of people will go out and do demonstrations, rallies, all of those things. I attack individuals and like if I see a problem individually, I try to get them
Yeah.
because again, good PR doesn't have a goodness and kindness doesn't have a good PR system, and evil does. So they hear a lot more about that. So I do things like at the black barber shop
Mm.
when black men are talking about gay people or Muslims or whatever. My favorite way, I found a lot of shortcuts to get the kindergartner to at least go on to elementary school. And my favorite way now because people are pretty prepared for ism arguments. So if you run into somebody who's giving you a piece of racism or anti-feminism or homophobia or whatever, you could say that to them. Oh, you're a racist, you're this or whatever. But they've heard that before because they're used to to expressing themselves that way. And they'll either counter with, the no, I'm not because of this, or I have this many friends or whatever. And I find the shortcut is just simply just and simply to say, well, if somebody's saying something to me, oh, this happened, I can use a real story. So someone is saying, I went to an acting class, and a gentleman in the class had a monologue a scene that he had to do, and his scene partner didn't show up, was ill. And so this beautiful Asian actress substituted in the class, whatever. And it was perfect. She's a fabulous actress. And we went to lunch afterwards, and I had just gone to look because I was picking it up to go to work. And he was in line or whatever. And he was like, yeah, I've got, this other scene to do for an audition, and I need to get a wife. And I was, I should ask this lady to do it, whatever. I was like, you should. She was amazing in today, whatever. And he was like, yeah, I'm not usually into Asian women, but she's now. You've heard that before. Many people have heard that before. And for me, I had two choices. I could be like, well, that's just racist as hell. Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my entire life.
Mhm.
But he's prepared for that. He's probably said that before or heard that. That's how he learned it from his. And so I just chose to say, not knowing would have any impact. I just chose, instead of saying, well, that's racist, I just said to him, oh, I said, well, maybe you should encounter more Asian women so you don't have to think that way. And he's like, wait, what? Because in his mind, he was talking about acting.
Mm.
He wasn't, he had made no statement in his mind that was offensive to anyone. I said, well, maybe you should have more Asian friends so you don't have to differentiate between the Asian woman you're into and the other woman you're into. And that might be helpful to you. Then you won't have to differentiate, and you'll just be into anyone that you think is cute. And that's all I said. I
Mhm.
thought I was just low key being like, bitch, you're stupid. But to his credit, his absolute credit, he came up to me the following day in class and was just like, what you said to me resonated. I went back, and I have to apologize for what I said. That was a dick move. And I was like, hey, as long as you learn. But so human beings have the capability of changing.
Yeah.
But to your question, I hate when I travel and people tell me as an American that Americans are stupid.
Mhm.
They're always telling me that, especially because we do not have a good review
Image.
out there in the world, or
Yes.
a good image in the world. And so I hate when people tell me that, not because I have some sort of American pride, but because I think it's not correct. And I constantly correct people that Americans are not stupid. Stupid is something, a level of mental wellness is something you're born with. Like, if your capabilities mentally is something you're born with. Americans are super smart.
Mhm.
They're just as smart as everybody else. But there's a big group of Americans that is willfully ignorant, and that I have an issue with. No
Mhm.
difference than I have an issue with you sending your child to school and your child has a book in front of them where there's another child in the Ukraine right now, or in Palestine right now, or in anywhere that there's a war right now, who does not have that opportunity, and you willfully ignore that opportunity for yourself. That annoys me. And so that's what I get angry over. And that's what I have discussions over. And so
Mhm.
when someone now comes to me and says that, and I've done it, oh, well, all the Muslims are terrorists. What do your Muslim friends think about that? And they always seem to, well, not the one at the water cooler, but the ones that you go to their house and you spend time with them, you go to sports with them, and they get silent. And then I go, because you see, I can't have this conversation with you because I do have Muslim friends that I've been to their house, whatever. And they seem to want the same things you do. And never have they asked me how to create a bomb or whatever or
Right.
anything, you know. And so I find myself in a position going into this election year in the same. I mean, I have a lot of faith. I have a lot of hope in the country. I don't have a lot of faith in the American people because there seems to be so many willfully ignorant people that just don't want to accept facts. But we also have to remember that the popular vote has told us what Americans actually think.
Agree.
And
Agree.
seen that over and over. And so there is definitely a problem between the translation of popular vote into the electoral
The
college.
electoral
And
college, yeah.
that's where the problem is for me. So it's a problem in system, but you can't really, you can beat the system. You cannot beat the populace for the rest of your life, as has been proven time and time again by history. It just sadly usually takes some sort of blood loss for that to happen. And I'm hoping that America doesn't need that to learn because, again, Americans are not stupid. We're willfully ignorant. But if you look at the facts, and because of the travel, I tend to just tell people, look up. Like, if you're worried about universal health care, look up on the map. Canada's been doing it forever. They haven't imploded. You
Yeah.
know, you know. Oh, gay marriage. Oh, look up Canada and all of Europe and a whole bunch of places have been doing it forever. And now America's been doing it. And guess what? The day before gay marriage was made fact for America, everybody thought we were all going to die the next day. Nobody died. Everybody just had more fabulous weddings. So
Exactly.
for me, it's like for me, it's just people need to educate themselves, and you just have to educate yourself. And I don't take stuff on face value. I try and research
Mhm.
where my opinions come from, and I'm willing to hear the other person's side of it. But it always boils down to: Are you trying to? What do you want? And does what you want come at the expense of the thing the person wants as well? Then there's a problem there. So that's
Yeah.
how I talk to people about that.
Well,
So,
bless you for having the patience to have those micro
oh,
conversations
I don't
because
have a lot of patience. I
I
just
don't
do it
know
when
what your process to me makes it sound like you're very great about asking a question,
but I
listening,
don't
and
do it with
waiting for the
everyone.
follow
I
up.
just kind of
Yeah.
stay out of the fray because I also have a big rage issue about it, which is not enough, like it's just like I have a limit, but when I see an opportunities, if I'm at a barber shop and you know there's quite frankly a big problem with getting black men to vote,
Yeah.
and it's built in a lot of misinformation and a lot
Mhm.
of, well, what has
What's the
politics done
point?
for us, whatever. And I
Yes.
had to remind
Yes.
I had to remind a black man that I was getting a service from, in without being too specific to embarrass it, but I had to remind, well, why are you here in this black owned business performing this service for me and for anybody that walks in here? And he's
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I was like, why are you here if the political system doesn't serve you? I said, why are you not picking cotton?
Mhm.
And he paused. I was like, you're not picking cotton because black people went and used the political system that was not made for them, just like you think it's not made for you, to allow you to be here now. Get your ass out and vote.
Yes.
If you
Good for
agree,
you. Love it.
get your ass out and vote. That's
Get your ass
not
out and
voting.
vote.
So I think that, so I'm not that patient. I have my moments, but yeah, I don't think you can attack with an attack. It's not going to change the person's mind if you attack if you attack them, whatever. But I think you can logically bring people around. And then there's some people that you just have to realize they're not going to change. They've
Yeah.
already been orange long enough and they're not going to
Yes.
change.
Yes. Yes.
So
They've
I
been
mean,
under that orange lamp for
yeah.
too long. And
So
that's where you pick your battles. Like you're not going to get engaged in those conversations because it's just going to make you crazy and you're just not going to go
but
there.
I'm
And so
also, but I have to say, I'm also not going to make them feel comfortable about it. And I think we,
good
as
for you.
people
Yes.
who defend the rights of other people, love to make people who are
Oppressive.
doing that, yeah, oppressive,
Yes.
comfortable. I'm not going to make you feel comfortable about it. I'm
Hmm.
going to ask you things like, are you okay with me sitting beside you? Because I do know I do know you have an issue with people of other colors, and I want to make sure you're okay. Those are the things I'll say to those people, because I'm not going to make you feel comfortable, because it's not okay for you to
Yeah.
go back and say, oh, I know Gordon, he's a great friend, because that's the person you're going to pull me up as your example when somebody calls you a racist. I am not racist. One of my friends is Gordon.
Right.
No, no, you don't get to do that.
Yeah,
So
you don't want to be that token, I'm the token black friend, right? It's very frustrating for me because I have all these thoughts in my head, but when in the moment I'm like, and I don't have all my facts in order, or I don't have all the references until like 10 minutes after the conversation. And I'm like, damn it all, I can't, it's just because I get so heated. And so I try to be better about like just kind of being calm and listening, and being able to, like you said, just maybe ask a question and see where that leads. I should just pretend I'm in a podcast, because I'm pretty decent. I'm getting better anyway at listening. I've been doing this since 2016, so I certainly hope so. But it is, I think it is necessary for us to have these conversations. I think people don't realize, like, one vote, one conversation that you've changed your mind, you've influenced somebody to get their ass out and vote, to make sure that they know that it does make a difference. Not just with the popular vote, but the more and the more and the more. I think it's great. So thank you for doing it. It's essential. And I feel like people become at a loss because they are frustrated, and I get it too, right? I get that frustration of always feeling impressed, or always like seeing that there aren't enough changes. But
Mm.
we got to get on board, and we got to get on to the bus that takes us to the closest destination, even if it's
Right.
not everything you want. I hate the
Yeah.
all or nothingers, like, well, this
You
is blah,
can't
blah,
be that
blah.
way. You
Yes,
don't all
no,
or
you
nothing
can't be
in
that way.
life.
No,
Yeah, because all or nothing, I mean, no one does all or nothing in life. No one is
no,
walking about, maybe one person, but hopefully he won't get like, but nobody's walking around doing all or nothing. It
exactly.
doesn't work.
It
There's
doesn't
too
work.
many, you're not on an island, so you're
No.
gonna have to compromise. You can compromise with walking out in the street. Nobody just walks into the middle of the street. You
Yes.
might want to, but if that red light is there, you have to make a decision as to whether you're just gonna risk walking out on the street in front of that truck and make the truck driver stop his routine, or you're gonna compromise and be like, this time I'm gonna listen to the light and I'm gonna stop right there and let the truck drive. So,
Compromise? What do you mean, Gordon? What is that?
I mean, um, it
Such
is
is
what it
life.
is. But it's
Well,
not simple. I tell people all the time, it's not simple, but
no.
conversations is how you change the whole dynamic of everything. But at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. So I think when you point out to people, look, I want what you want.
Mhm.
What you want is coming at the expense of what I want. How can we meet in the middle where we all still get what we want?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's possible,
It's
but
possible.
we
Well,
just
here's to
decide.
possibility. So next time we'll do this during like cocktail hour, so we can toast and
I
all
know.
that. Because you make great cocktails for our
I do.
listeners, just so that they know, like, this is an important fact about you amongst the many, many amazing things you do. Well, I don't want to keep you all day, but we will keep up and chat soon. Thank you so much for joining me today and having
This
this
has been fun.
conversation. Love talking to you, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Yes. Have a great trip.
Thank you. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram or Facebook.